Hello everyone, I'm Thriller, who only talks about good movies. Today, I will explain a perverted movie to you. It's a perverted movie. Guess how the goddess in the dog cage escapes. After escaping, how she uses the male lead as her own blood tool. The movie begins. The male lead, Xiaobai, is an employee of a pet store. His daily job is to feed the pets in the store. With his ordinary appearance, his life was dull and boring. Although he really wanted to keep a pet of his own, but his salary is too low, so he can only live in a cheap apartment that doesn't allow pets. However, everything changed on this day. On his way home by bus, he met his former school crush, Holly. He was very excited. Xiaobai, eager to break the monotonous and disordered life, he mustered up the courage to talk to her, but Holly had no impression of him. After a conversation that didn't make sense, she gave Xiaobai an awkward and polite smile, leaving only the disappointed Xiaobai, and watched her leave with a lonely look. Xiaobai didn't give up. He used social networks to find out more information about Holly and learned that she had just broken up with her boyfriend, working as a waitress in a restaurant. Then he asked his colleague Jack for advice on how to pursue girls. Jack told him he must show confidence in front of the girl, be humorous, and act like a cool guy. So Xiaobai wrote it down. Combined with the information on the internet he prepared, he bought 2 concert tickets that she had been looking forward to, and changed into a cheap suit. He went to the restaurant where Holly worked and launched a second attack. However, Holly was not interested in him, and even got annoyed by his poor pickup line. She impatiently said she already had a boyfriend, which made Xiaobai feel frustrated again. But Xiaobai still had hope, and started to secretly follow Holly every day. Aware of it, Holly returned home, complained to her roommate that she was being stalked. Her roommate comforts her not to be paranoid. At this time, Holly's ex-boyfriend called. She was a little happy and pressed the answer button. Her roommate whispered to Holly if she was drunk. Holly whispered back that a little bit. Her boyfriend heard it clearly, asking Holly who she was talking to. "Who do you live with?" Holly suppressed her excitement and pretended to be cold, telling her ex-boyfriend not to pester her anymore. Then she hung up. On the other hand, the persistent Xiaobai ordered a large bouquet of flowers for Holly, but when Holly received the flowers, thought they were from her ex-boyfriend, and was very happy. So she went to the bar where her ex-boyfriend worked at night, hinting that she could get back together with him. Xiaobai, who followed her all the way, seeing her chatting with her ex-boyfriend, he was very disappointed. He found her while she was smoking outside, and locked the door, not letting her in. He said excitedly that he sent the flowers, insisting on talking to Holly. Holly was very annoyed by Xiaobai's pestering, thinking she was a pervert. He pushed her away and wanted to leave. The two began to scuffle. Holly's ex-boyfriend saw it and immediately came to her rescue, and beat up Xiaobai and threw her out, and then left with Holly, the beaten-up Xiaobai. She found that during the scuffle, Holly's diary fell to the ground, and quickly picked it up as if it were a treasure. On the other hand, Holly returned home, also told her roommate in panic that her personal diary was lost. Maybe there will be big trouble. Xiaobai, who got Huli's diary, he discovered his goddess's unknown side. The seed of perversion in his heart began to sprout. In the basement of the pet store, he found an abandoned storage room. Then he bought tools, and learned through the internet. He built a strong pet cage, and placed it in the abandoned storage room. He also prepared some anesthetics and syringes. He prepared the dose, and started to follow Holly every day. On a dark and windy night, Xiaobai felt that the time was right. When Holly took a shower and went to bed to sleep, he climbed onto the bed and pressed her. He injected a tube of anesthetic into Holly's body and kidnapped her. Then Xiaobai stuffed Holly into a box, and successfully deceived his colleague Jack, and successfully transported her into the basement, abandoned storage room. Strangely, what happened? Holly's roommate was completely unaware. The scene changes. Holly wakes up from the darkness and found herself locked in a cage, with spiders crawling on her body. She immediately screamed in horror, and shouted for help loudly. However, her cries were drowned out by the barking of the dogs, the barking of the pet dogs. No one could hear her. The next day, Xiaobai came to see her with fast food, and thoughtfully prepared a litter box for her. Holly immediately cursed him angrily as a pervert. Xiaobai, who has rich experience in pet training, said coldly, "So stubborn. Then I'll starve you for 2 days." Then he took the food and left. A day passed. Xiaobai came to the underground abandoned storage room. Holly was starving and almost passed out, and had no strength. Xiaobai fed her some water, and brought some food. Holly no longer had any stubbornness or dignity, and grabbed Xiaobai's trouser leg, begging her not to leave. But Xiaobai said coldly, "You need to understand our relationship. Now you are my pet. Pets can't," holding the master's trouser leg, and then left. After Xiaobai left, after eating, Holly sat in a cage with her legs crossed, shivering, realizing that in the future, she might be trapped in this cage forever. Her roommate appeared outside the cage. It turned out that this roommate was imagined by her, and wasn't real. The imaginary roommate said, "You are now at the mercy of others. If one day he gets tired of you, and doesn't come anymore, you will starve to death here. So you have to try your best to please him, and please him." It's all over. Knowing that there was no chance of seeing the light again still had a trace of unyielding. She roared, "Shut up." Her roommate's fantasy disappeared. A few days later, Holly's mentality gradually changed. She ate eggs every day and defecated in the cage. One day, when she was peeing, she found a mouse climbing up her foot. She screamed in fright, and then brutally chopped the mouse into minced meat. One day, Xiaobai came to visit Holly. Holly asked him if he would humiliate or kill her. Xiaobai replied, "No, I want to transform you and save you." Then he took out Holly's personal diary, saying that I used to be in the crowd, an unremarkable ordinary person, while you were the goddess adored by everyone. Until later, I knew your biggest secret. And my life has meaning since then, because I was different from others. I know your unknown side. You said in your diary that love is just a physical reaction, but I think love is a kind of sacrifice. It turned out that Xiaobai found in Holly's diary, discovered the goddess's most terrifying secret. Every word recorded was shocking, making people shudder. Lee's ex-boyfriend cheated on his roommate. He was devastated and excitedly drove with his roommate to find his ex, to rescue his ex-boyfriend. However, there was a car accident on the way. He took advantage of the chaos to kill his roommate. Since then, he became obsessed with the feeling of killing, and started to kill randomly. At first, Xiaobai couldn't believe it was true, so he followed him and witnessed him at nightfall, transformed into a bloodthirsty goddess, and brutally killed one innocent passerby after another. Xiaobai decided to save him who was going crazy, and prevent any more innocent people from being hurt. He found this storage room, and built this cage. He used the way of taming pets to tame him, to change him. Knowing that Xiaobai knew all her secrets, Holly began to show a repentant look, begging to be saved. "Let's start from now." Xiaobai looked at Holly in a cage, then turned off the light and left. After leaving, Holly's roommate's fantasy appeared again. She praised it was a good performance. Holly said with interest that I need to make her believe that me. It turned out that Holly had just started in her heart, had her own counterattack plan. She wanted Xiaobai to know who was the master. From that day on, Xiaobai found that Holly was no longer panicked, and started to chat with her actively, but all about how she felt when she killed. Holly told Xiaobai with great interest, "Don't think you know me, and don't fall in love with me." But Xiaobai took out his pocket diary, saying that only he in the world knows her best. However, Holly started to hit the cage and self-harm, and warned that tomorrow when you come down, you will find me dead here. As he expected, Xiaobai showed a frightened expression on his face, and a little panicked. He licked the blood on his face and said, "Let me die here. The police will find you, and you will die too, so our fates are tied together. Now I'm in control of you." Little White, who was a little scared, angrily slammed the door, decided to starve him for another 2 days, to let him know who was in control. 2 days passed. Xiaobai came to the abandoned storage room. He coldly threw 2 bags of coffee to Holly, while eating an apple, telling him that this is his food, and then turned to leave. But Holly stopped him, and her expression became gentle. She said she had a dream yesterday. In the dream, there were only the 2 of us. We lived in an underwater house, and we were happy and sweet. These words moved Xiaobai a little. He softened and prepared to buy some food for him. On the other hand, Xiaobai's recent strange state makes his colleague Jack suspicious. He secretly followed him to the underground kitchen. After he left, Jack, hiding in the dark, immediately went in. He found the beautiful girl imprisoned in a cage. Holly saw Jack. She hurriedly asked him not to call the police, and quickly find some tools to smash the chain and let her out. Jack clumsily began to study the lock. Meanwhile, Xiaobai, who came back from buying food, found that someone seemed to have broken in. Immediately became nervous. He picked up a short stick and walked in carefully. Back to the door, Jack was unlocking the lock, and had no idea that Xiaobai had come in, but Holly had already seen it. But he didn't remind him, but instead gave a subtle smile. Suddenly, he grabbed Jack's hand, saying something with a hidden meaning. "Do you know what love is? True love is sacrificing everything for the one you love." Jack looked at Holly in confusion, and didn't know what he was talking about, and Xiaobai, who understood the meaning, has quietly walked behind Jack, and hit him hard on the back of the head. Jack turned around, and they wrestled together. The small Xiaobai was no match for Jack. At the critical moment of the fight, Holly in the cage stretched out her foot and tripped Jack. Jack's fat body fell down with a thud, and landed right on the blade. Xiaobai stood there at a loss. But Holly seriously persuaded him to go and pick up that brick, to kill Jack. Xiaobai trembled and refused repeatedly, but Holly said affectionately that "I can't lose you." Xiaobai suddenly realized, and immediately picked up the stone, following his instructions, to end Jack completely. Seeing the tragic situation of his colleague, Xiaobai was terrified, but Holly in the cage calmly taught him how to deal with the body next. Destroy clues. Following Holly's instructions, dismembered Jack, feeding it to the pet dog, and burned the clothes. Then he reported to his boss, and pretended to find him missing. Finally, he threw Jack's teeth into the city's sewer. In this way, step by step, according to Holly's instructions, Xiaobai successfully completed the destruction of the corpse and successfully controlled by Holly. Now what Holly has to do is to lock the person who is on the verge of collapse. Completely lock him in the cage of her heart. And treat him as her pet. To Xiaobai, who couldn't believe he had killed someone, don't deceive yourself. This is the truest side of your own heart. The reason why you like me is because we are the same kind of people. Accept your true self. Then she took Xiaobai's hand and put it on her face and rubbed it affectionately. And put Xiaobai's hand down. And said with tearful eyes, "Please help me." Xiaobai immediately withdrew his hand. Holly's face was instantly filled with disappointment. She said, "I thought you loved me." Then she lay aside and ignored Xiaobai. Xiaobai left in a panic. After that day, Holly started to ignore her. She didn't say a word and refused to eat, refusing to communicate with her. Xiaobai began to panic. And her mental state gradually became problematic. Her mood became more and more irritable. Finally one day, Holly told her that it was all over. "Can you help me? You put me in a cage. This is not love, it's possession." Xiaobai said he couldn't let her out. Holly said sadly that she didn't want him to let her out. "I just want to prove you love me." Xiaobai immediately asked how she wanted to prove it. Holly told Xiaobai a finger. "I want a finger to accompany me." Xiaobai refused, and said in horror that it was impossible. Holly didn't look at her. Tears of sadness fell from her clear eyes. She choked up and said, "I thought you really loved me. I thought there would be someone like me in this world. To accompany the lonely me. You go, and don't come back." Xiaobai didn't know what to say. Or do something, so he had to leave the dark and abandoned storage room. Just out of the basement, he saw his boss talking to the police. It seemed that Jack's matter had been exposed. He returned to the bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. Originally, he was ordinary and unremarkable. It was Holly's appearance that made his life meaningful. In a sense, Holly saved her, adding a touch of color to her ordinary life. But Holly was leaving her, and her life became a mess. After thinking for a long time, Xiaobai returned to the abandoned storage room and asked Holly in the cage, "Is it because I gave you my finger? Would you believe I love you?" Molly said seriously yes. So Xiaobai squatted down beside the cage and cut off a finger alive. Watching the blood gushing out, Xiaobai's face twisted and deformed with pain. Holly's mouth curved into a smile. She picked up the knife and held the knife on her neck. She said fiercely to Xiaobai to let her out, "Or I will kill myself. Now you have lost a finger. If you don't listen to me, I'll let you lose me again." Xiaobai, who was completely controlled by Holly, enduring the pain, opened the cage and let him out. Holly, who came out, pushed Xiaobai against the wall and said tenderly that "You saved me. I love you." And then kissed him deeply on the lips. After a brief sweetness, and her eyes turned fierce. The scene changed. Holly reunited with her ex-boyfriend and lived happily together. But one day, she accidentally discovered her boyfriend flirting with another girl. His expression suddenly turned cold, but she didn't lose her temper or question her boyfriend. Instead, she went out alone and came to an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs. There was an iron cage in the warehouse. Inside the cage was a bloody man. Hearing Holly's arrival, and quickly stretched out his hand with only 3 fingers. The person in the cage was Xiaobai. After Holly was freed that day, locked her in a cage, and put him in this warehouse. Every time her boyfriend cheated, when she had a brutal desire in her heart, she would come here to vent on Xiaobai. Now Xiaobai's appearance is ruined, blind, and with a crippled limb. He begged Holly intimately like a pet. The film ends. The title is Pet is a typical perverted duel, and a perverted movie. In the movie, the heroine can't accept Xiaobai. I can understand that, because sometimes I just don't like it. It's not the other person is good to me. I can love him. The heroine can't let go of her unfaithful ex-boyfriend, which makes me very puzzled. So in a relationship, blindly tolerating the best choice to solve the problem? I look forward to your comments. Okay, that's all for this video. Thanks for your support as always. See you next time.